my like cautiously optimistic outlook is like I said, like the sitting and talking and the like healing that comes for me in sessions and writing songs with people can't be replaced by AI, just because even if every song on the radio is AI, like we'll still do that.
Welcome, people of the internet. This is the Gender Amplified Podcast, Sticky. We are here for another installment of this incredible platform that we built. Gender Amplified, for folks who don't know, is a 501c3 organization, nonprofit based in New York City. We support women, gender-expansive music producers as they find their way along their journey. Learning audio engineering, audio production, and all of that good stuff. We're here with an incredible artist today, Emily Warren, who is a Grammy Award-winning songwriter, who's worked on some of your favorite records. Obviously, there's the Chainsmokers, Don't Let Me Down. There's New Rules by Dua Lipa, and so many other incredible artists. She also has now started her own publishing company. She's also an incredible activist in her own right, working on behalf of songwriters, and as they find their way through the music business and look for more equity, more opportunities to get paid, to keep it simple. So we're here today with Emily. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We first met when I was an in-house engineer at Atlantic Records in New York City. You were still a student at the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music at NYU.
Yeah. Many moons ago.
And when I saw you today, I was like, oh my God, my baby. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I've seen all the success over the years, and from time to time you'll get an email from me or a text from me, like just congratulating you on everything that you've done. But one of the things that was always so striking about you is your humble spirit, and also just your interest in working with women and making sure that they have a leg up, have opportunities. And we're going to get into all of that today. But also, I want to start this the way I always start it, by talking about your origin story as a music maker. Like, what got you going, and how did you come to find your sound as an artist?
So, first of all, my dad, who didn't do music professionally, but had and still has a band with his friends called Normal by Day, because they all have day jobs, was always playing music around the house, playing records, playing guitar. And so that was really where it first began. And then both my parents encouraged me and my siblings to play an instrument. And I got into piano. I was kind of trying to quit piano because we were learning a lot of classical stuff. And then they found us a teacher named Jen Bloom, who was also a songwriter. And I remember after every lesson, she'd either play us a song on a CD or she would play a song that she had written. And I genuinely remember I was 10 or 11 years old the first time it clicked that people wrote songs. And from there, it was just like obsession. Everything followed after that. Singing was just to sing the songs I had written. Writing was like I'd run home after school and write about my crushes or whatever was going on. And that's how I really fell in love with it. So, yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say is it started off as just almost like a form of escape, would you say? Just a way to creatively express yourself, and then it has morphed into this gigantic career.
Totally.
So, and there's a difference between figuring out that you can write songs and figuring out you can make money from writing songs.
Totally.
So walk us through a little bit of that process, the realization of that, and how you've come to where you are now.
Totally. I'm glad you bring it up, because I feel like that tension between it being something that's like diary and escape, or, you're connected to it because you need to write a song, versus being someone who has a career in music is never ending, and something that I have to constantly kind of excavate to make sure I'm still making music for the right reasons. But what happened was I was writing songs. My dad and his friends who make music, we all went into a studio and recorded a few songs. And then I put the songs out. I put a band together. We played out in New York all throughout high school when I was in high school. And then that had I first met my first publisher through that. She found us on MySpace, which just shows you how long ago that was. And then when my band split up, it was just when I had just started at NYU and in the music program with Clive, and everyone was kind of sharing what they were working on. And I got up to share my band's music that had just split up. And basically was feeling insecure about that. I didn't really know what I was doing, which direction I was going in. And I went into my email and searched records to see if I knew anyone at a record label. And Ria's email came up. She was at Atlantic at the time. It had just switched over to Prescription Songs, which was just starting out. And all of these things, including playing with the band in high school and the gigs we were doing, it was like for the love of it, truly. And then we started making a little bit of money, and it kind of happened that way, where it was like I was still a high school student and making a little bit of money on the weekends, enough to like pay the band and pay for rehearsal space and stuff like that. And slowly was like, oh, this is a job. And I was playing, and the guys in my band were all 5, 6, 7, 8 years older than me. So they were a little bit more kind of aware of that just because of where they were at in their lives. And I think that was an interesting thing to slowly navigate, where it's like this thing that you love, if you do these things, can also make you money and is also a job. That I think, not to get too ahead of myself, but I think as a career in music goes on, it can be really hard to connect yourself back to the why, like why you're doing it. Why, like I have to remember the 11-year-old girl who ran home and sat at the piano to write a song when I'm getting bogged down by like deadlines and people wanting me to do certain things, and try and remember what actually originally pulled me to it. And I think anytime I've forgotten that a little bit or a lot is when I've gotten like completely burnt out and unable to actually do it. But I do think that's like a radical act, is to remember your why, because the business is certainly set up to like make you competitive and make you think there's scarcity and make you think you need to like be extremely productive and doing more sessions than the person next to you, or you're not going to have the opportunities. So that's a big part of my whole like ethos, is remembering that, trying to remember that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I think that so much of what you said kind of reminds me of my own journey. You know, it's like in the business, and I'm sure you have had this experience of trying to make songs that can be sold,
right,
or produce records that can be sold.
Right.
And it's important to remember that at first, this was a love, this was a passion. And it's really easy to fall out of love with that passion if it just becomes a hustle. Mm-hmm. And certainly the business will make you feel like, let me get this money. Like, let me figure out how to just get this next placement. So actually, I want to talk a little bit about placement chasing, because you never struck me as a placement chaser type, but you get a lot of major placements. Can you, first of all, demystify what a placement is for the audience? Some people may not know. But also, how have you approached that without losing your sense of why?
Yeah. So placement or cut is basically when you write a song with or for an artist, and then they put their voice on it and actually gets put out, which is so rare, which we must remember. I feel like the odds of that happening are like less than 1%. And even for me, I've been super fortunate, but there's like 3,000 to 4,000 songs sitting on the hard drive untouched. And I think like I'm so happy that this was validated for me, but every song that I've had that's gotten cut and been put out and done well came from a real story of someone I was in the room with, or myself. I think like, especially, I know you mentioned in the intro, we might get into AI, which is such a funny thing right now, because I think anytime I've gone into a session and kind of phoned it in, where I'm like, oh, I haven't done this in a long time. This is more when I was starting out, but like, oh, I have the title Glow in the Dark. Let's like try and make that work with no story behind it. Just like, that sounds like a cool title. that has not turned out to be anything, because you're kind of like you're saying, you're like making the song with the intention of just like completing a song versus like accessing a real emotion and like working through something and trying to say something that heals you or heals the people you're in the room with. That to me is like the first thing that AI is taking out. Like I can do that on Suno literally right now and it will take me 2 seconds. But I think the thing that, at least right now, and I don't know if ever AI can take away, is like something like this where we're sitting and talking and getting to something deeper and then making something out of that, just because it's the sitting and talking and like excavating emotion that I'm obsessed with. Like that is songwriting to me. And I don't see how I could ever be stopped from doing that.
Right. First of all, I just like to say, I love the phrase excavating emotion, and I feel like that's a song.
Totally. Maybe that's what we're working on right now.
That's excavating emotion. Like it's giving like a comeback like song from Mariah Carey. Like,
let's go.
Let's just put that out there. I think I spend a lot of time talking to songwriters on this podcast. You're not the first songwriter I've had on. And I think part of my impulse around that is songwriters are producers that don't know they're producers like half the time, right? Mm-hmm. But also I think it's really informative for producers who may be watching this, because your record's only as good as the song.
Right.
So you have worked on some incredible songs. And one of my favorite songs that you've done is New Rules by Dua Lipa. I remember being out in Macy's. I was somewhere in public place. And I listened to the lyric and I was like, this is a salvation. Like some young girl is going to think twice. She's going to be like, wait a minute, what are my rules? Yeah. Like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing this. Like 1, 2, 3, like I got to like not do this again with this person.
Totally.
I'm going around and around with the lover. Talk to me a little bit about how a song like that comes to life, what the production process was like. What have you learned working with such great producers like, the Chainsmokers and, so many others, Scott Harris and so many others. What have you learned over the years about production, about yourself as a producer? Do you consider yourself a producer? All those things.
Yeah. I'm glad that's the song you brought up. That's like, I feel so proud of that song, and not because, what it did is the icing on the cake, but I think when I was coming up, when I first came out to LA, I was kind of working with all these like mostly older dudes. And one of them, who I was working with quite a bit, said to me in a session, it was just me and him, and I was writing lyrics. And then I kind of presented him the lyrics, and he was like, there is a rule where you don't want to make it seem like the guy is not going to get it. Like, you can't like completely cock block him, basically. I remember being like, I was still in college at the time, and I was like, whoa, like, 1, that's insane. And 2, like, okay, like, I don't think I ever like followed it, but it was in my head forever that like, if you really like shit on a guy in a lyric, like you're not getting a cut. Oh, which is crazy. And so in that session for New Rules, that was me, Caroline Aylan, and Ian Kirkpatrick, who are like some of the, like the session that working with the two of them is like the standard that all my sessions are held to. It's like the most perfect, like so much mutual respect and trust, and they're geniuses. And it was the first time the three of us had worked. And Caroline was in a situation that was very much toxic, like the song is explaining, and we were kind of like, why don't we just write a song that makes you stop doing this? And that was it. And that's how the song came about. And it's funny because a couple of things happened. First of all, we were kind of like abandoning all the rules. Certainly the one about like, don't make it seem like the guy isn't going to get it, and just writing the song that needed to be written for what Caroline was going through in that moment. And then the second thing that happened is we were in a camp when it was written, and the A&Rs came in after we finished, and we're kind of like, this doesn't really have a chorus if you guys want to take another crack at it. And we were like, we're good. It was like 9:30 p.m. We were like, we're good. And the song was as is today. And because of that, you know what this feels like when someone like is unenthusiastic about your song right after it's written, it's hard to like stay hyped on it. So that song legit sat on the hard drive for years. Like I never listened to it. It was just like, it was catharsis during that day for us and for Caroline, and we had fun. And then it was just like, okay, it served its purpose. And it wasn't until years later, the manager, Ian Kirkpatrick's manager, sent it to Dua's team. And I remember they decided it was going to be the single, and they were starting to like plan around that. And I remember thinking like, that's risky because the guy's not going to get it in this song, and that doesn't work. And it ended up working, obviously, and working like kind of in conjunction with the Me Too movement as that was happening. And then there were all these think pieces about like, this is the anthem of the Me Too movement, which was just like, you cannot ask for a better thing to happen to you as a songwriter. And like you're saying, I had a million DMs and emails and messages from girls and women being like, thank you so much. Like, I'm not talking to him anymore because of this song, which is just like, what more could you want in this life? Like, to make a song that sustains your career and yourself, but it's also like actually helping people and having impact. It's just like the dream. And again, I'm so grateful that that process and that message and everything was validated for all of us, because now I know to strive for that. I know that that works. And I know that kind of going into things with the right intention and to just like write what needs to be written in the room works. It worked. So yeah, that was huge.
Podcast over. We don't have anything. I mean, well, I'm being silly, but the reality is there's so much faith there. There is faith in your talent to push back on A&R who don't write songs, don't produce records. There's been probably a lot of shimmy shaking just to get into an A&R position that has nothing to do with music.
Right.
So a lot of times A&R folks aren't authority. They are not on the music anyway. So just the faith to stand your ground there. Also the faith to stand your ground in spite of what you'd heard another producer say. And when it comes to the producer artist or producer songwriter dynamic, there is a bit of a skewed dynamic there in terms of power.
Totally.
And so you were young, you were in school, and you have presumably an older, more established LA-based producer say, the guy's got to get it.
Yeah.
You know, like, and sometimes, especially in the formative years, we will take that stuff as like the holy grail.
Totally.
When it really is just an opinion.
Right.
And it's a biased one at that.
Right.
And your faith to stand your ground in spite of that. And also the faith to have that song sitting on a hard drive for all that time and to keep pushing. Like, you write a great song, somebody doesn't get it, it sits around, you could quit.
Yeah.
And a lot of people would quit during that time span of years. You know, people are in LA, it's a difficult city to live in, it's emotionally a lot of stressful getting all those, you know, granted you had your publishing deal, but even within the context of having support, one can give up.
Totally.
Right? So you stuck to it. And Sticky, for the folks out there, the podcast, the title Sticky is short for stick-to-itiveness, which is sticking to music and making sure that we're giving it our best push, which is important for music producers, but also it's important for anybody within the music ecosystem because it's just a very challenging business. There's a lot of volatility. So talk to me about the elements of your faith that keep you going. Were you religious when you were growing up? Like, is it just a deep-seated belief in yourself? Is it the confidence that you got from your parents? What is the cornerstone of your faith?
Such a good question. And I often wonder and wish I had the perfect answer for you, because as we were talking before the mics were rolling, it's like you and I both, I think, have an ingredient in us that makes it impossible to like see things that feel wrong and just let them lie.
Facts.
And I don't know what that is. I actually don't. Like, I have thought about it a lot because it's so deep in me, and it's so, I wouldn't want it any other way, but it is like an exhausting life you choose where you just like can't roll with things. You have to like question everything and change it if you can. I think I do. I don't know why. I think I do have belief in myself. I have to credit my parents for that and my siblings and my friends just because they all raised me. I think I have such a good group of friends who, when I was making music in school, and I went to a very academic school where the music thing was viewed as kind of a joke, and they were like at the front of every single show I played, no matter where it was, like getting fake IDs so they could get into places to like sing my lyrics at me. I credit them a lot with that. But yeah, I've found in situations like where I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. And so my response is just like, okay, then we don't have to do this, where I'm seeing other writers on the song who I feel like are in the same position as me, kind of caving, that I'm like, I don't know what that is in me. I'm so willing to like risk everything in the name of like doing the right thing. Obviously I've been super fortunate and I have a cushion to fall back on and everything, and so that has to be a factor. But yeah, I think things like new rules happening and that's one of the best stories of a song doing well that I have, but they all have stories like that. And so I think those validations, like things happening where the intention is so right and the experience of making the song is so fun and healing and interesting, that I just gravitate towards that. And actually like knowing, and every time I've fallen into the opposite where it's like I'm chasing something or I'm doing double sessions and not sleeping just because I think I'm going to miss out on something, where like no good music comes out of that. And being really like aware of flagging that, like, okay, that just happened. That was not, even though I made myself available for an opportunity, that doesn't mean that that's the right intention. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
No, it absolutely does, because I think there's also a sense that you understand the ingredients of success when it comes to the session, the parties involved, the business dynamics, the power dynamics. And that's something that I think I like that you brought that up, because so often I think creatively, folks are willing to sacrifice everything that makes them feel good,
right,
in pursuit of an opportunity or a perceived opportunity. And sometimes something good may come out of it, but if we're super stressed, if we are losing sleep, if we're messing up relationships,
right,
then was it really of benefit?
Right.
And I think that's the thing that, once again, faith, I think, helps folks like you and myself, because I will definitely step out too.
Totally.
And so it will cost me money sometimes, right, but I'll step out too if I just feel like, the energy ain't, like, this person is this person and good for them, but I can't be held up in a room with them for 48 hours. Yeah. So let's maybe just not do this. Thank you. Totally. But like, I'm good. So, but it takes a lot of faith to believe there'll be another opportunity. Like, right, there'll be something else. Like, this is not going to jeopardize my career, And I would say, especially when it comes to women, and it's something that I've always advocated for, if you don't feel safe, especially in the situation, to let it go. And safety could look like a couple different things. It could look like physical safety, emotional safety, mental safety, creative safety. Do you feel like your ideas are actually being validated and heard and actually considered? If there's no creative safety, there's also financial safety. If your team, your management, your publisher, your label, whoever is not protecting your financial interest, then they're not working for you.
Right.
Like, those people are on your staff. Like, they should be working for you. There should be financial safety. If there's not health and safety, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to say, well, this ain't the situation, and maybe it'll take me a couple years to rebound and regroup, but I got that, because I'm a lifer. Right. Like, what I mean by that is I'm gonna be doing this until I can't do it. Like, And that's the wonderful thing about music is that we can do it to the grave.
Right.
You know, like we can really do it, and there will be another opportunity as long as I don't quit.
Right.
You know, I want to on this conversation of talking about advocacy. We were speaking earlier, and you told me about your initiative, the Pact. I'd like for you to explain that to the audience. Why you started it, why it's significant, the things you learned, and ultimately what your hopes are for it.
Yeah. So the Pact started because there's kind of this like secret, not secret in the industry where artists or often their representation will kind of demand publishing on songs that the artist didn't write on, or demand unequal publishing more for the artist in a situation where the artist was present in the room. And I was in a situation that kind of tipped me over the edge where an artist's manager had demanded a crazy amount of publishing on a song with threats that came with it that like, if we didn't agree to this, they were going to pull the song. And for me, like we've been talking about, I was like, okay, cool, pull the song. And then my other collaborators were like, hold on, like, we don't want to lose this cut. This is a big deal. Like, don't do that. And first of all, the division it caused between us, which I found super upsetting. I don't blame them at all for being scared of that. But just like the fact that we were all being bullied, and the result was like my collaborators who I love and care about and I were kind of like ending up against each other, was upsetting. And then on top of that, I was just like, this is a messed up. I mean, there's so many stories of this with big artists who are never, ever in the room and don't write any songs, who you kind of just know if you're getting a cut with them, they're going to take a big piece of it. And that's the cost of having a cut with them. And so I was like, all right, what can we do about this? Because again, as I mentioned before, I felt like I was already in a position that I should have been, me and my co-writer should have been able to say, no, we're not cool with that. And known that, I mean, I knew that they had already shot a video. I knew that the song was coming out. I knew that was just kind of a threat. But if we can't say no, like what chance do up and coming songwriters and producers have to protect themselves? So the idea was we wrote kind of like an open letter that said that had to stop. Basically, like the bullying and just taking publishing had to stop. That there's an opportunity to negotiate. Like if you wanted to give a point for 10%, or if you just needed the artist's name on the song so they could talk in interviews about the song that they wrote, which fine. That there were different ways to do that, but demanding big chunks of publishing when that's the songwriter's only revenue stream had to stop, and got a bunch of established writers and producers to agree to it and sign it. And it's funny, this was 5 years ago now. And I'm always curious what impact it had. I think one of the big wins was every artist that I spoke to throughout the process like knew that they had participated in it, but hadn't thought about it, or their manager just came to them. And when they were telling them, you know, I did this, you have this tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, I got you 20% on this song. Like it was just kind of, they weren't considering what it meant to be getting publishing on a song that they didn't write. And so that like education piece of it was big, I think. And I think there are artists who are aware of that now and not doing that, or being more conscious about it, which is great. I think, you know, I speak to some people who operate totally differently because of it. And then some people are like, it's still going on completely. So, I think also just in retrospect, as we also discussed, there's a part of me that's like, it ended up being, there were all these like news outlets reaching out to me and the other writers who had signed the letter, basically trying to get us to name names, like what artists are doing this, because that's how they could get a headline and they could make like a juicy story. And I was kind of like, this will ruin anyone's career who says anything. And also like, this is not the point. And I think they still like, they'd put my name in an article and be like, writer for this big artist, and this big artist says, stop stealing publishing. And so it all got turned into that kind of as much as they could without names. And it kind of pit artists and writers against each other in a way that I hadn't anticipated, and kind of, if not regret, like upon reflection, us all like fighting over the small things when there are huge things that we can all kind of like get together and turn around and address is just something that I've thought about. But again, like to me, that was something that felt like a no-brainer. It was like, this is so clearly wrong. If you go to court, they're losing. They've stolen publishing. Like, you are not winning the case in court. The publishing is going to the people who wrote the song. So it's like so blatantly wrong, and always like bully tactics used to get that percentage. And it was still like hard to get people to agree, or to get people to think that that was the right thing to do. But I'm so glad I did it. Like, I still feel like doing anything is important, and I had to do it.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. We spoke a little bit before we start rolling about how change is nonlinear.
Right.
Like, sometimes you step out there as a change agent and you realize how cold it is outside, right?
Right.
And people may follow you for a little while, and then they'll, especially if it's in vogue,
Right.
and then they'll step back maybe. But I think, as I was saying beforehand, is there's always merit in standing on what's right and really standing for righteousness, because you spoke a little bit about all the conversations that you had with people who would call you trying to figure out if they were going to sign, or wanting to have these long, elaborate conversations about the point, the potential risk. And in some ways, I was saying to you, I think that's almost more valuable than like the outcome, right? Like, just the fact that people are being directly and indirectly educated on this issue, especially the public, because the public is becoming a lot more interested in how the sausage gets made.
Totally.
And there's a lot of information, thanks to social media, that's out there that's actually bona fide quality information, that checks out. And people are learning about just what goes into their favorite music, and they're wanting an ethical process. Just the way folks are, wanting the plants that are grown in their food to be ethically sourced and locally sourced. I think that same process is starting to be reflected, or same desires are starting to be reflected in the creative disciplines. People want to know that folks aren't being taken advantage of in the studio. People aren't being abused. Engineers aren't being abused. Folks want to know that there's as little abuse associated with the music that they are listening to as possible, which is why we've seen in recent years so many artists getting canceled.
Right.
And people going on these massive cancel campaigns like, we don't listen to this anymore.
Right.
We don't listen to this artist anymore because they were not ethically making their work. And I think it matters. And it's a much larger conversation. I think it's going to take more time. But the work that you've done, as you know, is potent, it's powerful. And I think the real journey of it is to be seen.
Totally.
It's to be seen. So you planted the first seeds, and it was just time to wait. Wait and allow it to grow and germinate.
And if I may, I think this is also what I so respect about what you've been doing in Gender Amplified, and all the results of kind of like sticking your neck out, but showing another perspective. And I think you're right that just saying it means something.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that everyone's gonna never give away publishing again on impact, but it's the more people that have heard that perspective, oh, it is messed up that they take publishing when they didn't write a song, to even just have that going around in your mind is important. And likewise with everything. I mean, we were talking about it a while ago with if you go into a studio and it's 3 other women, what kind of song happens? And then if that kind of song happens when you then go into a studio and there's guys in the room, what have you learned from being in that situation that now makes you feel oh, that was weird that just happened? Or that's weird that you're not listening to me. I now know what it feels like to be listened to.
Right.
Just a million things like that I feel I was speaking about this recently. I think last year, I guess it was, or 2 years ago, whenever Barbie and Poor Things came out, where I was like, this is so cool that there are things being reflected back to me in this movie that only because they're like making a joke of this behavior am I realizing that the behavior is messed up, that it's things that I like without art reflecting it back to you or like people reflecting it back to you. You don't necessarily clock it. Like I think back to when I first was in sessions. I genuinely remember the first time someone heard me in a session. Like his name is Shawn. We were recording a vocal and I said, hey, can we try like turning this up or whatever I said? And he paused the music and turned around and was like, what'd you say? And I was literally like, oh my God, he heard what I just said. That's the first time that's ever happened. And just like the more experience and knowledge you have about what is acceptable and what feels good, the more you can clock what doesn't feel good. And I think one of the misses in music is that we're so often responding to culture versus creating it. Not always. And I think, again, not to harp on new rules, but part of why that was so cool was because we didn't make it to be like, oh, we're going to change how people write songs because the guy isn't going to get it. It was just like, that was the truth of what happened. And it ended up inherently like, imagine someone saying that in a session now would be insane. That's like not allowed to be said anymore.
It's true.
So I think the more we can all like see and experience and then operate from that place versus from a like small contained place of like fear of, oh, I shouldn't say that, or I shouldn't do this, or I should be quiet. I should be like, should fade into the background. Like the more cool, important lyrics and sounds are going to go into a song and the more that like the whole world gets to experience that. So yeah.
I got to ask this question, but I want to jump to another question. I got my questions. First of all, I respect and appreciate and affirm everything you just said. I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about this, what stood out to me, the importance of being heard, the importance of being in spaces with people of shared experience, right? Like sometimes that's gender. I think one of the things that's so great about guys being in the studio together is because they're of shared experience. They have a shorthand. I think that's one of the great things about women being in the studio together, or gender expansive folks or trans folks being in the studio together.
Right.
Their shared lived experience. There's a shorthand that they can actually navigate. And you're saying that you've experienced the validation of feeling heard in the studio, especially with women. You've worked with women producers before. For the producers who follow this podcast, what are the attributes that you look for in producers? Like, what are you, in a perfect world, in the perfect session, what is the temperament and the characteristics, the quality traits of a great producer?
I think, okay, so Ian Kirkpatrick in my mind is one of the best producers alive or dead. He's who I did a lot of the Dua stuff with. And his gift, one of his many gifts, is that he's trying to make something that you haven't heard before. That's a big priority. And I think it is to your point, like a faith or a courage in himself. There's no, like, I think I go into a lot of sessions and it's like, oh, let's listen to a bunch of music, which fair enough, you get inspired. And then it kind of like, you create something that you think will work versus trying to make something different. And I love doing that with Ian because I don't have to like pay too much attention to what he's doing because that is kind of his North Star. And then on top of that, I think he and the producers that I love working with, kind of know the art, and it is an art. It's hard to kind of explain how to do it, but between like kind of having one ear on the conversation and hearing where like the emotion is going and trying to make something that complements that. And also like being able to check in and be like, and being able really to know when to like let the conversation happen and let the writers or the writer and the artist do their thing, and like just being able to like have enough going in the production that like keeps momentum and feels like keeps excitement going, while also like not just turning around to the computer and like making something that you think is cool that has nothing to do with what's going on over there.
Right.
So yeah, and I don't think that means doing a lot. Often it's just like one sound and a little bit of drums, or like one sound and bass, until you've like started putting melodies and stuff down and you can start building the track. But yeah, I think it's a whole like technical and emotional intelligence about what is going to serve the room.
I think it's so interesting because when you're speaking about this dynamic, I think about proximity. It's so often that the producer is at the desk making something with their back to the songwriters.
Right.
And I think just from like the standpoint of aesthetic and just relational context, it can be off-putting just as a schematic for how music is created.
Totally.
You know, like so often back in the day, folks had garage bands. Everybody's kind of facing each other.
Totally.
You know, the drummer's back there. You know, that's where you get the phrase like "give the drummer some," right? Because like he was always, you know,
in a
back
different
there.
room.
You know, but it felt more communal. And I think in the way that we make music now in studios, in terms of dimensions and how studios are configured, how do you feel about that? Is it something that is comforting? Is it something that you've normalized and just kind of learned to deal with? Or would you like to see studio spaces that feel a little bit more collaborative and open and
100%.
In terms of design?
Yeah, I actually was just hearing about, I need to find a picture or ask for a picture about a producer who has their setup like at a dining table in the middle of the room. And so like everyone is sitting around a table, which I love. I think you're totally right. I think, and as we were talking about before, so many things in music are just like, they're just like that because that's how like a studio was built. And so now everyone builds their studios that way. It doesn't necessarily make sense. It doesn't make sense. The producer is back to the artist and writer. Like that makes no sense. And I think it's funny, like some of my favorite rooms to work in are, you know, the best setups are like pretty small, and like Ian's studio, for example, is like he's at the computer and then it's like a couch right next to him. So we're all kind of in a circle, kind of. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I'm just about to embark on building a studio, and just a personal thank you. Yeah. And we are thinking about like, how should it be configured? What makes the most sense? I'd love to see how the dining table works, just because I think like, yeah, like when you're sitting at the dinner table, what conversation happens that don't happen when someone's literally like.
Right. Like, why would you, like, I mean, like so much of producing is built around conversation. And I think sometimes the producer could feel left out.
Of course.
You know, like producers sitting there, like, do they like this? Or they, you know, the producers got something on loop and it's like, I don't know.
No one has said anything.
Nobody's saying like, whatever. I can't see people's faces. I think it can sometimes inadvertently introduce a bit of anxiety into the process. Where there shouldn't be, right? If you see some person's eye contact, they're nodding and, you know, you're kind of on the right track, or like the artist and producer can see the artist and songwriters can see what you're doing as a producer and be like, oh, what sounds are these? Like, and me personally, I always like to do a little bit of educating because I just love that. Like, I love when artists have questions about engineering and what does this do? And what does that do? And I'm like, well, you know, so, but they're not inclined to do that if they're all the way back in the back of the room and not actually,
of course,
in the mix of what's happening creatively. So it's interesting that you said that, and congratulations on your studio. That sounds great. GA is also building a studio, so
let's go. Where?
It's LA. We're going to build out here in the process of raising capital. So
amazing.
We have to converse about that.
Hell yeah.
In the spirit of Gender Amplified, you have always been an honorary Gender Amplified member, although you've never come to a camp, which we should change that.
I would love to.
But you've always been doing the work, and you've been someone who in the business I've always recognized was pulling women up as you came up very strategically. Can you talk a little bit about why? And also, can you speak about your publishing company and how you're continuing to do that through your new entrepreneurial endeavor?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, first of all. And I think my mom she's retired now, but she was a lawyer, and she was the only woman at her law firm forever, for 20 years, whatever. And just the way that she moved and operated was always super inspiring to me. And I think, again, my friends that I grew up with, I was never around an environment where there was only room for one girl, one female. And when I started working in the music industry, I found that immediately, that it was kind of like, this female writer coming up is this other female writer. Like there doesn't seem, the way the business is run is that there's only space for one person. And so it's really hard to not feel competitive and feel like you have to hold on to your spot. But I think anytime I found that, it really put me off. And so it's just always super important. Again, I'm lucky that it didn't have to be that directly intentional for me. It was just kind of like how I was brought up, that I was always like shouting out my female collaborators, not for any reason other than like they deserve to be shouted out. And I think people would always be like, that's so nice that you're saying that about her. Like, and which I was always like, what? It's just normal. So yeah, that's always been important to me. And I think like, because of your work and your camps, like there is no better feeling than being in a room full of women, and whether it's making music or hanging out or whatever, like it's, like you said, shared experience, an important thing to be around. So, yeah, I just think that has always been, I love the way that feels and just want to continue creating that, and don't at all feel like I need to be the only female in a situation. And then with the publishing company, just have two women signed to us. Deza, who's also, her artist project is Googly Eyes, which is incredible. It's just all kind of coming out now. And then Bulow, who's an artist and writer, who's also incredible. And that's just been fun because there were ways in which, I didn't have like big publishing ambitions. I don't currently intend to like start a big publishing company, but these were two writers who I just thought are incredible and felt like me and kind of the team could help them. And also that there were opportunities that I didn't have time to do all of them and wanted to kind of pass those off to other people. So that's what we've been doing. And yeah, we didn't set out to sign only girls. Yeah. It just shook out that way. And yeah, I think as much as I am able to pay it forward, I'm always trying to, just because I needed so much of that. We all need so much of that. And I'm happy to pass it on to the next generation.
Amazing. So we've talked a little bit about all the things. We talked about songwriting, producing, studios, the whole thing. I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about artificial intelligence. What is exciting you about it? What is potentially terrifying about it? Like where are you on the spectrum of concern or excitement?
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening on the way here to an Ezra Klein podcast that was called "How Scared Should I Be About AI?" With, and I can't remember his name now, but like the godfather of the thought of like, we have to stop this immediately. Who's through the whole episode being like, you should be very scared. Yeah, I think probably I should be more scared. I think like I just had a conversation with a friend who works in AI talking about, she was just on a panel about taste, AI having taste and how AI doesn't have taste. It's basically just like scouring everything and putting together something without being like, ooh, I like this and I don't like this. That's not the kind of thing that it is, at least now, maybe forever. She was saying it's going to be like that forever. And at the end of the day, like what I would say what we are all doing, like the business that we're in is taste. Like your taste, what songs do you like? What lyrics do you like? What sounds do you like? Like I think I'm operating at my best when I'm just like having trust in my own taste. So that being said, like every time I've put something into ChatGPT for lyrics or like put something into Suno, something's just not like it's best if I'm doing it as a joke and it makes like a joke song. But like when I'm trying to make something serious, I'm always like, that was a little weird. Obviously it's going to get better. I think what's cool about where it's at right now is, first of all, it's like kind of janky still. So it makes a lot of mistakes that are cool, particularly with like Suno and stuff like that, where we'll add like, it'll be in like a weird time signature, or there'll be extra measures somewhere that you would never do that can, I think, be inspiring. I think the coolest applications of it are like a producer that I work with will prompt like 30 songs in Suno before the session and then find like a bridge of this song to use as the chords for a section of a song, which is like kind of just what we've always been doing, but just in a different way that I think is really cool, because you're still having to put yourself in it so much. You're still fully producing the song. And like I said, like I think this could be so naive, but my like cautiously optimistic outlook is like I said, like the sitting and talking and the like healing that comes for me in sessions and writing songs with people can't be replaced by AI, just because even if every song on the radio is AI, like we'll still do that. All that being said, I think it's really important that some kind of regulation is put in place. First of all, in terms, like I just prompted a song in Suno this weekend, a joking song that was like so clearly, it sounded like so many things and those people are not being paid, and I could release the song. And that's like, I was saying the other day, like we should have known how good we had it when people were just sampling songs.
Right.
So that's tough. And then, yeah, I just think like, I think it would be good for people to know if they're hearing music that's made by people or by AI.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I know that there's a lot of like bubbling companies that are trying to address that, whether like using AI to check and see if a song
used
AI.
Made with AI.
And could have like a certification on it, like the organic sticker or something like that. And I know there's like, they're trying to create platforms that are like just for AI music so people, you know, can know. And I guess we'll see, like the what's scary about AI in music is what's scary about AI in general, but it might, like in the best case scenario, all this technology gets so advanced and so crazy that we all like put our phones down finally and like return to something else, which might not happen, but it might also happen.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's hope. I think I'm finding that already. I was with some young producers the other day, fresh out of college, and they saw me on ChatGPT, and they were like, "No,
yeah,
and you're from Memphis, no, Ebonie." I was like, bro, you know. But I think there will be for sure a movement of people that finds themselves moving back to the prairie, so to speak. Totally. Like they want to keep it purist. Like you will find a community of purists, but there's always been that, right? I think what AI introduces, to your point, is a form of automation. Yeah. And we've been applying automation to music for a very long time. Whether you're talking about the drum machine, whether you're talking about auto-tune, pitch automation, you know, drum quantization automation. Ableton is the king of time-based automation, and stretch automation. Warping is a form of automation. So we've been doing this for a while. I think what perhaps is different than previous eras is the speed at which this technology is not only being deployed, but the speed to which it is advancing.
Right.
And also like its effects on environment and our ecology, our ecosystem. Like I said jokingly before, I'm from Memphis, and Data centers have been placed there, and it's created a lot of ecological disruption, a lot of environmental hazard.
Yeah.
We haven't had that before, in a massive technology overhaul that is affecting all industries all at once.
Right.
Having such an impact on our ecosystem in this way. And so there's, to your point, a lot of need for regulation, both at the governmental level, but I also think folks have to self-regulate, right? And be responsible. Like as a producer, for me, I find a bit of a tension between like prompting things in Suno, but also I'm optimistic about Suno, and UDO and all the other platforms. I'm impressed by the tech. I'm exceptionally impressed by what we as a species have been able to figure out using computers.
Right.
I think it's pretty wild. And so I want that innovation to continue to progress, but I think there just needs to be ethics applied, especially as it pertains to how the models for AI generation have been developed, right? There wasn't a lot of transparency around it. There wasn't a lot of ethics around it. So we have to figure that out now retroactively. We have to go back and say, okay, how do we counterbalance the boundaries that we have already overstepped, right?
Totally.
In ways that are equitable. And I really think that if done right, AI music generation could provide alternative revenue streams for producers and songwriters. Anybody whose music is being used to train should be getting paid.
Of course.
Period.
And they're really not right now. No. Isn't it so twisted too that the AI is not being used to like solve the climate crisis, but it's being used to make songs
and create climate crisis
and like make movies? Like it's so strange that the arts, I get it, because it's like people who don't make art, like that's the most fun application for it. But like, how about curing cancer and curing the climate crisis, and let's leave time for people to make music and movies.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
You are a light, a joy, an incredible force in this music business. The business is lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Can you tell folks where to find you if you're active on the internet?
I'm not that active. I'm kind of hard to. My Instagram will be a huge disappointment when you see there's no posts on there, but I occasionally.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I occasionally log in and see things, but it's Emily Warren with 4 N's. 1, 2, and 3 were taken, and I think that's probably the only one.
We're going to close it out. Thank y'all so much for being a part of the Gender Amplified podcast. If you don't know, Gender Amplified is a 501c3 nonprofit based in New York City. We hold music production camps and workshops and panels. We do our best to connect women and gender expansive music producers to one another, to help them along their journey as they're pursuing music production and getting out there in the swamps of the music business. We try to make that load a little lighter with what we do and the resources that we provide. If you want to learn more about us, you can check us out at genderamplified.org. Once again, this is our podcast. It's Sticky, which is short for stick-to-itiveness. What keeps people sticking to music? Why? How? We try to bring on guests that will help demystify that for our audiences. Until next time.
Coming in here, the energy was already just open.
Even when we had the intro session, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a fun day because you're around like-minded individuals who all want to create something good, something groovy.
I'm glad you're at the Control Room series and apply to our applications.
We started just like listening to music that everyone kind of put out or has worked on so that you kind of get a vibe of like who you're working with and understanding, okay, do we want to start something from scratch? Someone have a beat or a project that we kind of want to build on.
I think y'all voices are really complementing each other.
Yeah.
You always want to have a producer in the room, a songwriter, a top liner, someone who does beat making. We also want to encourage other people to test out new roles that they haven't necessarily been given the opportunity to play really in a studio.
I felt like I was in Willy Wonka's factory this weekend, like being able to touch vintage gear that still works, that still sounds crazy.
The process becomes a lot easier when you're pooling resources, when we have someone like Mo who we can come reach out to for the technical points. And then we have Jewel in there who's, teaching us about the voice compression and different plugins that we can use.
Everything here is so structured. Everything here is like we feel safe
I don't know, being here has been a breath of fresh air.